I stepped into the kitchen after a long shift at the warehouse, boots still caked with dust, expecting the usual quiet hum of our old house. Instead, water sloshed under my soles, cold, murky, pooling around the fridge like some lazy tide. My stomach sank. The pipes. Again. Lauren, my wife of 6 years, was already pacing by the sink, phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp but oddly eager. "Yeah, Tim, it's bad. Can you and Casey swing by tonight?" I tossed my keys on the counter, frowning. Tim and Casey were our neighbors. Nice enough, I guess, always waving from their porch with those overly bright smiles. But something about her tone prickled me. She hung up, spinning toward me with a grin. "They'll fix it. They're good with this stuff." I nodded, slow, watching her fuss with a towel like it was a performance. Context clicked into place. The house was a fixer-upper we'd bought cheap after I left the Army, and leaks were nothing new. But then conflict reared up. Why call them before even telling me? I'd patched pipes before, deployed overseas with less notice than this. "I could have handled it," I said, keeping my voice even. She waved me off. "Oh, Evan, you're tired. Let them help." Fair enough. I was beat. But as I grabbed a beer and sank into the couch, I couldn't shake it. Her excitement felt misplaced, like she'd been waiting for an excuse. The Army taught me to trust my gut. It had saved me from ambushes in tighter spots than this. Therefore, when I heard her humming, a tune she hadn't sung in months, I leaned back, sipping slow, and decided to watch. Not accuse, just watch. Tim and Casey would be here soon, and I'd see what this help really looked like. The water kept dripping, a steady tap, tap, tap against the floor, and I wondered if the mess under my feet was about to get a whole lot deeper. Tim and Casey rolled up 20 minutes later, their pickup rattling into our driveway like they owned the place. I watched from the window as they hopped out, Tim with his wiry frame and toolbox swinging, Casey trailing with a grin that showed too many teeth. They were a couple, mid-30s, the kind who'd host barbecues and talk your ear off about organic composting. Lauren flung the door open before they even knocked, gushing like they were royalty. "You guys are lifesavers," she chirped, ushering them in. I stayed put, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, sizing them up. Tim clapped me on the shoulder as he passed. "Rough day, huh, Evan? Don't worry, we've got this." Casey nodded, her ponytail bouncing. "Yeah, we'll have it sorted in no time." Context settled in. They'd helped us before, fixed a busted fence last summer. No charge. Neighborly stuff. But then conflict jabbed me. Their eagerness tonight felt performative, almost rehearsed. Tim crouched by the sink, rattling pipes like he was putting on a show, while Casey hovered near Lauren, chatting about some recipe swap. I caught a glance between them, quick, sharp like a signal. "Thought you'd need more tools," I said, testing the water. Tim laughed too loud. "Nah, man, I've got everything right here." He tapped his toolbox, but it barely clinked. My eyes narrowed. I'd hauled gear across deserts. I knew what a real kit sounded like. Therefore, I stepped closer, peering over his shoulder. The pipes looked fine, rusted, sure, but no gushing leak. "Where's the break?" I asked. He fumbled, pointing vaguely. Deeper in. Tricky spot." Lauren cut in, voice tight. "Evan, let them work. You're hovering." I backed off, but my mind was spinning. Their fix didn't add up, and her defensiveness lit a flare in my chest. I retreated to the living room, listening as their voices dropped to murmurs. The Army drilled pattern recognition into me. Spot the anomaly, survive the trap. And right now, this whole scene was screaming anomaly. I just didn't know why yet. I sank into the recliner, beer still sweating in my hand, staring at the ceiling while Tim's clanging echoed from the kitchen. The sound didn't match the job, too sporadic, too loud like kids banging pots. Lauren's laugh floated over it, high and bright, a sound I hadn't heard since we moved here. Context grounded me. I'd been out of the Army 3 years, trading patrols for forklifts, and she'd been restless ever since. The house was supposed to be our fresh start, but it felt more like a cage. But then conflict flared. Why was she so alive tonight with them when she'd barely glanced at me in weeks? I closed my eyes, and a memory hit. Kandahar, 2018. My squad was scouting a village, air thick with dust and silence. My gut screamed ambush seconds before the first shot cracked. I trusted that instinct, yelled the warning, and we'd made it out. Same feeling now, tight chest, racing pulse. Therefore, I sat up, straining to hear. The clanging stopped. Quiet murmurs replaced it, too low to catch. I stood, moving silent like I'd been trained, and peeked around the corner. Tim was wiping his hands, grinning at Lauren. Casey leaned close, whispering something that made her blush. Almost done, I called, stepping in. They jolted. Tim dropped a wrench. Casey straightened fast. Yeah, just tightening things up, Tim said, scrambling. Lauren shot me a look, half annoyed, half nervous. Evan, relax. They're helping. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. In the Army, you don't ignore red flags. You dig until they make sense. Therefore, I grabbed my phone, pretending to check work emails, and snapped a quick photo of the sink setup. Evidence, maybe. For what? I didn't know yet. Back in the living room, I replayed it. Her laugh, their glances, the flimsy excuse of a repair. It wasn't proof, not even close. But it was enough to keep me awake. The pipes might hold tonight, but something else was leaking through the cracks of this marriage, and I wasn't about to let it drown me blind. The clock hit 10, and they were still here. Tim sprawled on the kitchen floor, fiddling with a pipe wrench, while Casey perched on a stool, chatting Lauren up about some farmer's market. I'd retreated to the couch again, flipping through channels I didn't watch, keeping one ear on them. Context built slow. They'd offered to stay late, claiming the leak was tricky, and Lauren insisted I shouldn't worry. She'd even poured them coffee. Playing hostess like this was a party. But then conflict crashed in. I slipped into the kitchen for a refill and saw the sink. Same rusty joint, same damp spot. No progress. Thought you said it was almost done, I said, voice flat. Tim glanced up, sweaty, smirking. Yeah, man, it's stubborn. Old houses, you know. Casey chimed in. We're thorough. Don't want it bursting again. I stared at the pipe, dry now, no drip. My jaw tightened. I'd fixed worse in basic training with duct tape and spite. Therefore, I leaned against the counter, watching. Lauren caught my eye, her smile faltering. Evan, go rest. You're looming. I didn't budge. The Army taught me patience. Sit still, observe, wait for the enemy to slip. And they did. Tim stood, stretching, and muttered something to Casey. She giggled, then shot Lauren a look, quick, loaded. Lauren's cheeks flushed as she turned away, fussing with mugs. My pulse kicked up. What's so funny? I asked casual. Oh, just an inside joke, Casey said too fast. Tim nodded, grabbing his toolbox. We're wrapping up. Good as new. I walked them out, forcing a thanks as they climbed into their truck. Lauren lingered by the door, waving longer than she needed to. Back inside, I checked the sink, still dry, still untouched beyond a few scratches. Therefore, I faced her. They barely did anything. She shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It's fixed, isn't it? Stop overthinking. Her tone was sharp, final. I let it drop, but the air between us thickened. Whatever they'd fixed tonight, it wasn't the pipes, and I was done pretending I didn't notice. I jolted awake at 2 a.m., the house dead, quiet except for my own breathing. Lauren's side of the bed was cold, sheets barely wrinkled. Context settled fast. She'd been restless lately, slipping out of bed to read or get water, always with some excuse. I chalked it up to stress, the house, her job at the bakery, me working late. But then conflict hit like a punch. I heard it. A soft murmur, downstairs, not the wind or creaky floors. Voices. I slid out of bed, barefoot, moving silent like I'd trained for years. The Army made me light on my feet. Step wrong in the field, you're done. I crept to the stairs, peering into the dark. Lauren's silhouette flickered by the kitchen, phone glowing against her face. She whispered, urgent, no, not yet. He's asleep. My chest tightened. Who was he? Me? Therefore, I edged closer, crouching low. Her voice dipped again. Tomorrow, then. After he leaves. A pause, then a laugh. Soft, intimate, the kind she used to save for me. I froze, mind racing. She clicked off the call and padded toward the stairs, forcing me to slip back into bed, heart hammering. She slid in beside me, oblivious, her breathing steady while mine burned. I stare at the ceiling, piecing it together. Tim and Casey's late night repair, her defensiveness, now this. Therefore, I waited till her snores kicked in, then grabbed her phone from a nightstand. Passcode unchanged, my birthday. Rookie mistake, Lauren. The call log showed Casey, timestamped 5 minutes ago. I scrolled texts. Nothing blatant, just can't wait to see you, and Tim's excited too. Innocent enough, maybe, but paired with that laugh? My gut screamed betrayal. I set the phone back, hands shaking. In the Army, you confirm intel before you act. Never jump the gun. But this wasn't a battlefield. It was my home, and the enemy was already inside. Therefore, I lay there, plotting my next move. Tomorrow, she'd think I was gone. Fine. I'd let her play her hand. Then I'd play mine. The whispers stopped, but the silence roared louder than ever. Morning hit like a freight train, gray lights spilling through the blinds. Lauren already up, humming as she brewed coffee. I lay still, replaying her midnight whisper. Tomorrow, then. After he leaves. Context clicked. She thought I'd be gone for my usual warehouse shift, giving her space to move. She'd been dropping hints about helping Casey with some vague project lately, sewing, gardening, whatever. But then conflict slammed me, those texts, that laugh, the pipes that didn't need fixing. It didn't add up. I rolled out of bed, playing dumb. Heading out soon, I said, loud enough to sell it. She nodded, distracted, pouring cream like her life depended on it. Say hi to Casey if you see her. I added, fishing. Her spoon clattered. Oh, sure. She's busy, though. Too quick, too jittery. Therefore, I grabbed my jacket and left, except I didn't. I parked 2 streets over, doubled back on foot, and pulled up Casey's Instagram on my phone. No project posts, just yoga selfies and Tim grilling steaks. I scrolled deeper. Nothing about Lauren, no tags, no hints. My thumb hovered over Tim's profile, private, but his bio bragged about DIY king status. Bull. That toolbox last night was a prop. Therefore, I switched to Lauren's account, public careless. A photo from last week. Her and Casey at the bakery, captioned best partner in crime. Comments gushed, but one stood out, Tim's, lucky me, 2 queens. Heart emoji. My stomach twisted. Back home, I slipped into the garage, watching through a crack as Lauren locked up and left, keys jangling. She didn't head to work. She turned toward their street. I could confront her now, demand answers. But the Army taught me better, gather intel, strike when they're exposed. Therefore, I stayed put, letting her think she'd won. The alibi was fraying, thread by thread, and I'd tug until it snapped. She wasn't sewing with Casey or sipping coffee with Tim. Whatever they were planning after I left, I'd be there to catch it, and they'd never see me coming. I crouched in the garage, breath fogging in the chill, watching Lauren's car vanish around the corner. Context settled. She played me, thinking I was too tired, too trusting to notice. 6 years married, and I'd never doubted her. Deployments had kept me sharp elsewhere, not here. But then conflict roared up. A memory blindsided me. My grandfather, sitting on his porch, pipe smoke curling as he stared at me, 16 and heartbroken over some girl. Trust is a rope, Evan, he'd said, voice gravelly. Cut it once, it's gone. You'll feel it before you see it. That ache hit now, same as then. I'd felt it last night. Her laugh, their glances, the whispers. Therefore, I straightened, jaw tight, and grabbed my old duffel from the shelf. Inside, a tracking app I'd used overseas. Nothing fancy, just a burner phone tweak. I synced it to my main line, then slipped out, sticking to alleys until I reached their block. Tim's truck sat in the driveway. Lauren's sedan parked sloppy beside it. I ducked behind a hedge, pulling up the app. Her phone pinged, inside their house. No bakery shift, no project. Just her, Tim, and Casey, cozy while I was supposed to be sweating at work. My grandfather's words echoed louder. He'd been a mechanic, hands like leather, always fixing what broke. Cars people me. He died before I enlisted, but his lessons stuck. Therefore, I crept closer, boots silent on the grass, peering through a side window. Blinds half open, shadows moving. Lauren's laugh again, sharp, alive. Tim's arm brushed her shoulder, casual but too close. Casey grinned, pouring wine at 10 a.m. My fists clenched. I could storm in and end it now. But rage wasn't the play, planning was. Grandfather taught me that too. Fix it right, or don't bother. Therefore, I backed off, mind spinning. The rope was cut, dangling, and they didn't know I'd seen the fray. I track her next move, build the case, then cut them loose my way. The app blinked steady, tethering me to her lie, and I let it burn me forward. I sat in my truck, parked a block from their house. The trackers stopped pulsing on my screen. Lauren, still inside with Tim and Casey. Context grounded me. I'd followed her here, confirmed she'd ditched work, and now I had proof she wasn't running errands. 6 years, and I'd never check her phone. Trust was our deal. But then conflict erupted. I remembered last night's call, her dodge about Casey. I pulled up her text again, thumb trembling. There it was buried under grocery lists. Tim, 2 days ago. Can't wait to see you. She says bring wine. Lauren's reply. Only if you behave. Winky face. My breath caught. Flirty, blatant right under my nose. I scrolled up, more crumbs. Casey, he'll be gone all day, right? Lauren. Yep, clear shot. Clear shot? My blood boiled. Therefore, I opened my camera roll, zooming into the sync photo from last night. Same pipe, same rust. No fix, just theater. But confrontation? Not yet. I needed more. I tapped her phone's cloud backup. Sloppy, synced to mine from years ago. A jackpot glowed. A selfie, time-stamped yesterday. Lauren, Tim, Casey squeezed on their couch, grinning like kids. Caption, pipe crew. Pipe crew my foot. The sink was a prop. This was the plan. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, then forced a breath. The army drilled control into me. Flip out, you lose. Therefore, I drove home, playing the alibi game too. Late shift, I texted her casual. She replied fast, take it easy, hon. Honorable like nothing was wrong. I walked inside, dropped my keys loud, and waited. She'd come back soon, thinking she'd pulled it off. She did an hour later, breezing in with a bakery bag, cover story probably. How was work? She asked, all smiles. Fine, I said, forcing it. How's Casey? Her eyes flicked away. Good. Just girl talk. Girl talk. With Tim's arm on her shoulder. Therefore, I nodded, letting her stew in her lie. The smoking gun was mine. Texts, photo, tracker. She thought I was blind, but I was loading the chamber. One slip, and I'd fire. Lauren crashed early that night, sprawled across the bed like she hadn't a care. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling. Her phone's glow still burned into my skull. Tim's can't wait, her winky face. Context hardened. She'd lied to my face, played house with them while I hauled crates. The selfie looped in my head, 3 smug faces mocking me. But then conflict surged. I needed proof beyond text, something undeniable. Words could twist, actions couldn't. Therefore, I grabbed my keys, slipped on my jacket, and headed out. She'd mentioned grabbing tools from their place tomorrow. Perfect cover for me to tail her. Next morning, I left at dawn, loud enough to wake her, slamming the truck door, revving the engine. She'd think I was gone. I circled back, parking behind a dumpster half a mile from their street, and waited. At 9, her sedan rolled past, headed straight for Tim and Casey's. I followed, keeping 2 cars between us like I'd track convoys overseas. She pulled in sloppy again, hopped out, and darted inside. No knock like it was her place too. I slid closer, boots crunching gravel, and posted up by their shed. The window was cracked. Amateur move, guys. Voices floated out. Lauren's bright. He's at work, we're good. Tim chuckled. Told you he's clueless. My pulse spiked. Therefore, I edged nearer, phone recording, catching every word. Casey's voice cut in. So tomorrow night? All 3 of us. Lauren giggled. If you're lucky. My gut churned. Confirmation, raw and ugly. They weren't fixing pipes or swapping recipes. This was a setup, a fling, planned under my roof. The blinds shifted, Tim glancing out. I ducked, heart pounding, but he didn't spot me. Therefore, I backed off, replaying it. All 3 of us. Not just him, Casey too. A trio, laughing at the soldier too dumb to see. I stumbled to the truck, hands shaking, recording saved. Evidence locked. But rage clawed me. Storm in, fists flying? No, that's what they'd expect. I'd hit harder, smarter. They wanted tomorrow night? Fine. I'd give them a show they'd never forget. I drove home, knuckles white on the wheel, the recording looping in my head, all three of us. Context crashed in. Lauren hadn't just cheated. She'd orchestrated something bigger, wilder, with Tim and Casey both in on it. 6 years of vows, late-night talks, her waiting out my deployments, all torched for a cheap thrill. But then conflict detonated. I replayed the audio, catching a detail I'd missed. Tim's voice low. He'll never suspect the pipes were fine all along. Casey's laugh. Genius, babe. The leak wasn't real. They'd faked it. A trap to pull me out, her in. I pulled into our drive, hands trembling, and stormed to the kitchen. The sink stared back, dry, untouched, same rust I'd snapped days ago. I grabbed a wrench, twisted the valve. Nothing. No flood. No drip. A sham. Therefore, my mind raced back. Her eagerness, their flimsy tools, the late-night whispers. It was theater every second, and I'd played the oblivious husband perfectly. My chest burned, but I forced it down. Soldiers don't crack, they counterstrike. I sank onto the couch, piecing it together. The selfie, the texts, now this, undeniable. They planned a night tomorrow, thinking I'd be slaving at the warehouse. All three of us wasn't a slip, it was the point. Lauren wanted them both, a twisted game I couldn't unsee. Therefore, I pulled up the tracker. Her dots still glowed at their place. I pictured it. Wine flowing, laughs escalating, my wife sandwiched between them. Bile rose, but I swallowed it. Revenge wasn't screaming or smashing. It was precision. I grabbed my laptop, syncing the recording, the photo, the texts, every scrap of their filth. The Army taught me to build a case, not just a brawl. But then a new conflict flickered, doubt. Was I wrong? Overreacting? No. The pipes didn't lie. Neither did her voice. Therefore, I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, they'd expect a clear shot. I'd give them one, right into a trap of my own. They thought I was the fool, but the curtain was up, and I'd rewrite the ending. Checkmate started now. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, the recording's static hum filling the silence. All three of us. Context locked in. Lauren, Tim, and Casey had staged the leak, mocked me, planned their night like I was a ghost in my own life. 6 years of trust, shredded. But then conflict erupted. Rage clawed my chest, hot and wild, begging me to smash something, anything. I gripped the table, wood creaking, picturing Tim's smug grin, Casey's laugh, Lauren's blush. I could have kicked their door down, ended it bloody. But the Army wired me different. Anger's a tool, not a master. Overseas, I'd seen guys lose it, rush in, get clipped. Survivors think. Therefore, I exhaled, slow, and replayed their voices. He'll never suspect. Wrong. I suspected plenty now, and I'd use it. Revenge wouldn't be fists. It'd be calculated, cold, a blade they'd never see. I closed the laptop, mind churning. Tomorrow night was their move. Tonight was mine. I grabbed my old field notebook, jotting steps, evidence, leverage, strike points. The recording, texts, selfie, solid but not enough. I needed them caught, exposed, ruined. Therefore, I paced, tracing the house's layout. Cameras. I'd installed a cheap security system last year. Motion-triggered, hidden in vents. Lauren never cared. She'd forgotten they existed. Perfect. I climbed a chair, angled one toward the living room, another at the back door. Test run, crystal clear. My phone buzzed, her texting, "Home soon, love you, love you." My jaw clenched. She'd stroll in, all innocence, while I sat on dynamite. Therefore, I texted back, "Miss you too," playing the part. She arrived minutes later, bakery bag in hand, kissing my cheek like nothing was rotting between us. "How's your day?" she asked, breezy. "Quiet." I lied, watching her unpack pastries she hadn't baked. The breaking point wasn't her betrayal. It was her ease, her smile, her thinking I'd stay blind. I smiled back, but inside I'd snapped. The soldier woke up, and they'd pay for poking him. Lauren slept soundly that night, oblivious to the cameras humming above her. I didn't. Every creak kept me wired, plotting. Context crystallized. Tomorrow, they'd come here, thinking I'd be at work, their clear shot to play house. She confirmed it. Text to Casey, "He's out by 6, come over." But then conflict flared. I wasn't leaving. I called in sick, voice hoarse for effect, and my boss didn't blink. They'd walk into my web, not hers. Morning broke, and I played the routine, showered loud, grabbed my keys, slammed the door. Drove off, looped back, parked 3 streets away. Therefore, I slipped home through the alley, silent, and set the stage. I wired my laptop to the cameras, live feed ready, and stashed it in the garage. Then I invited them, texted Lauren, "Tell Tim and Casey I owe them drinks for the pipes." Tonight, she replied fast, "Great idea. They'll love it." Oh, they would. 6 p.m., headlights flashed, Tim's truck. I watched from the garage, feed flickering. Lauren opened the door, all giggles, pulling them in. Tim carried a bottle, Casey a smirk. "Where's Evan?" Tim asked, casual. "Work," Lauren lied, smooth. They settled in. Wine poured, voices low, then louder. Therefore, I hit record, catching it all. Tim's hand on her knee, Casey's laugh as she leaned in, Lauren's whispered, "We've got ours." My stomach twisted, but I stayed ice. The feed rolled. 30 minutes of flirting, touches, plans for next time. Enough to bury them. But I pushed further. I texted Lauren from a burner app, spoofing my work number. Home early surprise. Panic flashed on screen. She shoved Tim off, hissed, "Go." They scrambled, wine spilling, bolting out the back. Therefore, I waited, then strolled in like I just arrived, keys jingling. "Hey, Han," I called, feigning shock at the mess. "What happened?" She stammered, "Spilled wine, clumsy accident, friends over." I nodded, all sympathy, hiding the grin. The setup was locked. Cameras caught their filth, and they fled thinking they dodged me. Fools. I had the tape, the power, and the next move. They'd sleep tonight, I wouldn't. Game on. I woke early. The footage burned into my brain. Tim's hand, Casey's smirk, Lauren's lies. Context steadied me. I had them on tape, raw and undeniable, a noose they'd tied themselves. The soldier in me hummed. Evidence wins battles, not shouting. But then conflict struck. Exposure wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel it, to choke on it. Therefore, I dug deeper, flipping through contacts. Casey's sister, Jenna, a loudmouth realtor who'd blabbed at our last barbecue. Perfect. I emailed her the clip, anonymous account, no trace, titled Neighborhood Drama. By noon, my phone buzzed. Jenna's group chat, wildfire spreading. "OMG, you won't believe this," she posted, clip attached. Replies flooded, shock, disgust. Poor Evan. I watched the feed hit X, local forums, their tight little world imploding. Therefore, I played dumb, texting Lauren, "What's this video everyone's talking about?" She called, voice shaking. "Evan, it's not what it looks like. I swear." Too late. The trap sprang. Tim and Casey's phones blew up. Neighbors turned, their DIY king crowns trashed. I leaned back, watching her pace, phone glued to her ear. Casey, then Tim, then silence. She'd been queen of excuses, but this? No spin could save it. Therefore, I upped the ante. I copied the house deed, my VA loan, my name. She'd signed off years ago, too lazy to read. I called my buddy Mark, a divorce lawyer, and filed papers by 3, irreconcilable differences, full asset claim. She'd get nothing. She stormed in, eyes wild. "You did this, didn't you?" Sent that video. I shrugged, calm. "People talk, Lauren. Guess they saw something." She screamed. Betrayal. Me ruining her life. Irony stung, but I held firm. The trap wasn't just shame, it was leverage. Therefore, I handed her the filing, watched her face crumple. "You're out by Friday," I said, voice steel. She'd wanted a thrill. I'd given her a reckoning. Tim and Casey's marriage cracked. Jenna's posts hinted fights, blame. Good. The neighborhood buzzed, but I stayed quiet, letting the chaos do my work. Checkmate landed, and I hadn't raised a fist. Lauren stood in the kitchen, divorce papers trembling in her hands, eyes red from crying. Context hit hard. 2 days since the video dropped, and her world had collapsed. Friends ghosted, bakery whispers, Tim and Casey dodging her calls. She'd begged me all morning, texts, voicemails. "It was a mistake, Evan, please." But then conflict roared. She'd never owned it, never said sorry, just scrambled to save her skin. "You can't do this," she spat, voice cracking. "I made this house too." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Your name's not on it. VA loan my cash. Check the deed. Her jaw dropped. She hadn't remembered, hadn't cared back then. Therefore, I pressed harder. You faked a leak, Lauren. Planned a threesome in my living room. Mistake? That's strategy. She flinched, tears spilling, but I didn't budge. The footage played in my head, her laugh, their hands, and fueled me. I was lonely, she yelled, desperation peaking. You were always working gone cold. I cut her off. So you picked them over talking to me? 6 years, and that's your fix. She sank into a chair, sobbing, but it didn't move me. Therefore, I laid out the endgame. You've got till tomorrow. Pack and go. I'm keeping everything. House, savings, all of it. Her head snapped up. Savings too. I nodded. My pension, my hustle. Her bakery check spent on wine and lies. She lunged, pleading now. Evan, we can fix this. I'll cut them off, I swear. Too late. The rope was cut, like grandfather said. I'd trusted her, and she'd burned it. Therefore, I turned away, grabbing my keys. I'm crashing at Mark's tonight. Be gone when I'm back. She wailed, but I walked out, doors slamming on her excuses. The confrontation wasn't loud. It was final. She'd expected me to fold, forgive like always. Not this time. The soldier won, not the husband. I drove off, her silhouette shrinking in the rear view, and felt the weight lift. She'd gambled, lost, and I'd collected. One night at Mark's, then home, mine alone. I pulled into the driveway a day later, sun dipping low, the house quiet for the first time in weeks. Context settled. Lauren was gone. Her clothes, her trinkets, a half-eaten pastry left on the counter. Divorce filed, assets secured, neighbors still buzzing about the video. But then conflict flickered. Not regret, but a hollow ache. I'd won, but at what cost? 6 years, torched. I wandered the rooms, boots echoing, and sank onto the couch where they'd laughed at me. The cameras still blinked, useless now. I yanked them down, wires dangling, and tossed them in the trash. Therefore, I cracked a beer, staring at the wall. The army made me hard. Kandahar patrols lost, but this carved deeper. Betrayal wasn't bullets. It was slow poison. Yet I'd survived, turned it back on them. Tim and Casey's marriage imploded. Jenna's post crowed about Casey moving out. Lauren? Couch surfing, probably, her charm useless now. I leaned back, exhaling. Grandfather's voice crept in. Fix what's broke, or let it go. I let her go, fix myself instead. Therefore I stood, restless, and grabbed my phone. Mark texted, Drinks tonight? New bartender's cute. I snorted, subtle man. But why not? I've been a ghost here, haunting my own life. Time to step out. At the bar, she was there, Jess, sharp eyes, quick laugh, pouring whiskey like she knew me. We talked, easy, no baggage. Driving home, I felt it shift, not healing, but something close. The new Evan wasn't the husband, wasn't the fool. Harder, colder, but alive. Lauren's betrayal forged me, and I'd wielded it. House kept, savings locked, her gone. Revenge was clean, legal, ruthless. Jess's number glowed on my phone, a maybe. I parked, staring at the house, mine now, no ghosts. The ache lingered, but I'd carry it like shrapnel. Stronger for it. Thank you for tuning into Tori's story. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world are you watching from right now. Let us know in the comments.